Hello and welcome to Discourse of Peacocks. First of all, can I just apologise that I didn't put a video out for the Bristol game, but there was a reason for that. I didn't watch the game live and it felt a little bit dishonest going back, having obviously known the score and having a reaction to a game that I wasn't watching live in the moment. I was actually out enjoying a nice walk in York. So I do apologise for not putting a video out last week, but I kind of felt a little bit fraudy if I'd have made one just for the sake of making a video. So we will get into Saturday's game, which was Leeds United 3, Plymouth Argyle 0, in which I don't think even the most ardent Leeds hater could describe that game in anything other than one-sided. 23 shots to 0 shots, 80% to 20% possession, 700 odd passes to 150 or something like that passes. We were brilliant and dominating, and the game was incredibly lopsided in Leeds United's favour. So we'll get straight into it today. We've got the good, the bad, and the league. So starting off with the good, we have we broke down a low block, which obviously is something that we got a little bit frustrated with, especially last season, not being able to break down that low block and struggling to kind of bring ourselves down to the level that was necessary in order to break through that. So we got that courtesy of my man, my Daniel James, with an absolutely phenomenal toe poke from just outside the box. It was brilliant. Another assist for Nonto there. Finally, he seems to be getting the flowers that he deserves, the credit that we need Dan James in this team. He is brilliant at this level, and I still do genuinely think that he will do us a job in the Premier League under Daniel Farke. I think he's brought the best out of Dan James. He's really flourishing, and it's nice to see other Leeds fans, content creators, just the media in general, really appreciate how good value Dan James is, both offensively and defensively. So I'm really, really happy with that. Another thing, we got a clean sheet. I mean, it's probably the easiest clean sheet Leeds United will get this season. Meslier faced 0 shots. So even people who were advertently against Meslier couldn't actually say anything bad about him because he literally had nothing to do. I don't think he touched the ball for like the first 40 minutes of the game. You can't say anything more than that. Our midfield and our defence deserve that clean sheet as well, because we've been unlucky with some of the goals that we have conceded. There hasn't been that many this season, but, obviously the slip from Solomon with the Burnley goal, I think we've been quite unlucky with just how impressive defensively all versions of our midfield have been as well. Obviously starting with Gruev and Ampadu, then Gruev and Tanaka for a small period, and then Tanaka and Rothwell as well. I think that they've all been brilliant and they deserve the clean sheet, even though they didn't really have to do much to earn it in this game. I thought Aronson obviously got another goal. That's back-to-back games, home games, where he's got goals. He got the second goal against Watford in the 2-1 win. And he got another brilliant goal. It was a lucky goal. But just his pressure as well, when you just watch him in isolation, he's such a pain to play against. He's just so relentless and kind of unforgiving in the way that he hassles all of the opposition. So I'm glad, his pressing, I think, makes up for Piro's lack of natural press, which is obviously something that we give up when we have Pirro instead of Joseph in the side. Joseph presses, the centre backs. I thought Pirro had a better game. Obviously, he got the goal. It was the second goal, wasn't it? Yes, he got the second goal. But I thought that he actually played a lot better. I don't think he lost the ball as many times. Granted, again, he's not going to have an easier game to press against their back six. That bus that definitely wasn't parked there at all. But yeah, I thought that he was good for that. Sam Byram, I thought, had a really good game. It's nice to see Sam Byram, obviously being naturally right-footed. It's nice to see him fit in really nicely. I don't think we really missed Bogle, and that's nothing against Bogle. As the season's progressed, I've been more and more impressed with Bogle, but Byram in that game really shows us what a great bench option he is. You're not going from like here to here, you're kind of going from like here to here. So the step down isn't that much, and he's a very confident player at this level, especially. So I think that he was really good going forwards. Again, I love the dynamic because Dan James worked so hard defensively. It freed Sam Byram up to be a little bit more progressive than he usually is. He's usually kind of safety first fullback, whereas Firpo, obviously on the opposite side, is very much kind of attack first, defend later. So I think Dan James and Sam Byram's partnership worked really well. And Dan James's speed will always help, and he's not afraid to, go in, slide in for a tackle or anything. So defensively, Dan James allowed Sam Byram to be a little bit more creative than he probably was in the Bristol game. Obviously, Wayne Rooney came out after the game saying that 2 of the goals were very lucky. And I know that got a lot of people's kind of backs up, and I understand that. But we created our own luck. You can't say that the goals were lucky when we had 23 shots to their 0 shots. We created that luck. Yes, the goals that we maybe scored did contain quite a bit of luck, but we were going to score. If it wasn't those goals, we would have scored others because we were relentless. And, obviously, second half it's like a completely different game. We know it was already done by that point. But that first half, we probably should have had 5, 6, 7 goals. So, yes, we had a little bit of luck, but we didn't get anything that we didn't deserve. Whereas you could argue teams against us this season have got results that they didn't deserve. Burnley, Sunderland, Portsmouth, maybe. But we created our own luck. Final point. Well, no, actually, I've got 2 more points. So another 3 points. Fantastic. We're just kind of ticking them off. The greens are just, continuing to tally up. And final good point is we got to see substitute. Let me stick my teeth back in. We got to see substitutes. So we got Gilavogi. Really sorry if I've mispronounced his name. I'm not great when it comes to names, if I'm being honest. We got to see, he looked solid. He just looked huge. And even when he lost the ball a couple of times, they weren't doing anything with it. They couldn't get past him. He was just this ginormous unit of a man. It was like, you shall not pass kind of thing. So, and he sprayed a ball over to, I don't know who was on that side at that point. Was it Solomon? Possibly. But he sprayed a ball over and I was like, ooh, that's quite tasty. He's not just kind of obviously he almost got a header in a set piece. So I think that that's potentially something that we could harness. Rothwell supplying the corner and getting on. We potentially have somebody who might be able to head the ball in. I know. We don't speak too loudly about it. We don't want to scare him away. We also had Sam Chambers who came on. I thought he looked really skillful down that right-hand side. He had a few tricks, and I thought he didn't look out of place. He didn't look like a starter, but he also didn't look out of place either, which I think was fantastic. And then Charlie Crew, obviously, He looked sharp. He got a higher XG from the 86th minute to the end of the game than Plymouth did the entirety of the game. He looked quite fearless because we do need players who are willing to take shots from outside the box. That's that's how we unlocked that game, was taking the shot from outside of the box. So if you've got players who are like, you know what, yeah, I'm going to shoot, then that's a real positive thing, and something that hopefully we can harness as the season goes on. I am going to actually come back to the substitutes later on in the video, because I have a little controversial, potentially, opinion relating to them. So wait and see what that is. But we're going to move on to the bad. Obviously, I'm being quite nitpicky because we got a 3-0 very we won't have a more comfortable win all season. So the bad is kind of nitpicky. It's not actual bad things, really. Obviously, we took 30 minutes. I did think Plymouth, to be fair to them, did play well. Yes, they did have a back 6/11. But it did take 30 minutes for us to break them down. Had it have gone on any longer, and certainly if it had gone on into the second half, the atmosphere would have probably been even kind of more tense. It was on the cusp of taking too long to break that down, considering how poor they were. But people do forget that playing a low block is a style of football. It is a way to gain points in this league. And for 30 minutes, Plymouth did do it well. Obviously, as soon as it was broken, they utterly collapsed. And we jumped on it for those 8 or 9 minutes. We absolutely obliterated them and kind of sent them seeking sanctuary. But yeah, that's probably one of the few bad things. We should have scored more. I think that's kind of it seems that that's a theme just of the last 2 seasons. Well, season and a little bit, obviously, under Farker, that we should be scoring more, which again just comes down to conversion. It comes down to all sorts of things. But we should have just been absolutely scoring for fun, getting the goal difference up. It would have been good. But we won 3-0. Most times if you see 3 goals in a game, especially for your side, you're more than happy with that. I think had those goals been spread out, I don't think people say the same thing of we should have scored more. Scored 2 in the first half, 1 in the second. Maybe that doesn't allow people to kind of say, oh, well, we should have scored more because the goals were spread out. But because it was just this really intense period of 8 or 9 minutes. I apologize if you can hear my dog barking. So I do apologize for that. Yeah, so it was just these 8 or 9 minutes of real intense football and intense kind of pressure that we just broke their spirit, but we probably should have got more. Nonto was a little bit quiet. He did get an assist, obviously, for the Dan James goal. But I do think that maybe the pressure of being the main man is getting to him a tad. But one thing I will say defending him is, I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, he needs to step up. He needs to, he's supposed to be Somerville, of this season kind of thing. And I'm all right with him not being that. And my reasoning for that is we didn't have it being Somerville FC. So why do we want Nonto to be Somerville? Because if we then if Nonto produces the numbers that Somerville did last year, considering all of our front 4 and kind of the defence as well are popping in with goals and goal contributions, why do we want Nonto to become that uber player like Somerville was last season? Because we saw last season when Somerville was that for us, and when other teams realised it, they just took him out of the game. So why do we want Nonto to be that kind of main man and get those numbers? Because then he just becomes a target. and then we maybe go back into old habits of becoming reliant on an individual, whereas because, we've already got kind of 3 players on 4 or 5 goal contributions so far this season, whereas this time last year we didn't really have that. So I'm okay as long as he just keeps on ticking numbers. He doesn't have to get all of the goals. He's still going steady with the assists and things. That's fine. Like, I'm more than happy with that, because we've had Solomon. Obviously, he hasn't played a lot of games, but he's had an assist. We've had Ramazani with goals and assists. We've had Dan James with goals. We've had Aronson with goals and assists. We've had Pirro with goals and assists. We've had Joseph with goals and assists. We've had all of our defenders, barring Rodon, with goals so far this season. So I'm okay with Gnonto not being the Somerville, because the reliance on Somerville last season ended up being our downfall. So I don't want another downfall. So I don't want us to be reliant on somebody. I want them all to be interchangeable, and to also feel that sense of competition, because that's what drives a team forward. If you know that the team is reliant on you, you can maybe turn down a gear and not get yourself injured, because of the fact that you know that you're going to be starting regardless. So I'm okay with Gnonto being a little bit quiet, because he still got a goal contribution in the game whilst being quiet. That's the perfect kind of quiet for me. So you're still doing your job. You're still just knocking up another assist, and that's fine. Last thing, again, quite nitpicky, but it was a training exercise in the second half. It was very similar to the Huddersfield game last season. Obviously, that game we were 4-0 up at half-time, and we did actually concede in the second half. But it did feel very just, we were all ready to kind of be like, right, okay, so we've won that game, let's move on to the next one. And I think that's what we've got to keep in the back of our head, is we do have to go to Millwall on Wednesday. I can't remember whether it's Tuesday or Wednesday. I think it's Wednesday. So we are away in London. It's a tough ground for us to go. Yes, we won there last year, but that's the first time in 9 years, I think, that we've won there. So we can't just say, oh yeah, well, we're going to beat them, because Millwall just beat Burnley on Sunday. So they're going to make it ugly. They're going to make it tough. They're going to make it physical as well. And we've still got, Dan James is still coming back from injury. Solomon is still coming back from injury. We have Ramazani out, so we need to protect the players. The job was done. So what's the point of putting extra minutes in legs for it not to get us anywhere? So yeah, like I said, I'm being a bit nitpicky because of the fact that there wasn't actually that much wrong with the game. It was a bit boring, but we just want to get out of the league. And if that's what it takes to just get out of the league, win the game in the first half and mess around with it for the second, maintain some energy so that we can fight in a tough away game, I'm okay with that. So we're going to move on to the final point, which is the league. We're now, obviously, after that game, we are second in the league, because we are only 3 points behind Sunderland. We've got the same goal difference, but they dropped points to... Who did they drop points to? Was it QPR? I can't remember, but they dropped points anyway. They got a draw on Saturday, and then Sheffield United got the win, but they were still behind us. Burnley lost to Millwall in a match that, by all kind of reports of it, was incredibly dull, boring, and a lot of Burnley fans there's a lot of rumblings of wanting Scott Parker out. They have the second lowest big chances created, I believe, in the league. Hence why at the beginning of the season, their conversion rate was just so ridiculously high. I think it was like 30% or something at one point, because of the fact that they create so little, but we're just fairly clinical. You remove that clinical edge and you're not creating the chances, you can't score them, can you? So I think, again, that's brilliant. We're the only team now left with having lost just the one game to Burnley via a unlucky Solomon slip, I would say. So the league is kind of moving a little bit more into the shape that you would expect throughout the course of the season. Obviously, Coventry have got back-to-back wins, so they're no longer in the bottom three. Plymouth have now gone into the bottom three. Millwall are now in seventh. West Brom seem to be drawing their way out of the top six. Sheffield United, back-to-back wins, I think now, or is that their first one? I can't remember. But either way, obviously they're just behind us. Burnley, by not creating a lot and by losing that clinical edge, they're dropping points. Sunderland now don't have Joe Bellingham for 2-3 matches. I can't remember because it's different rules for different types of Reds. But they definitely don't have him for at least one match. So that's quite fortunate for us in terms of we've got a good couple of games that we should really be getting 6. 4's not the end of the world. But we have a real chance to go into the international break at the top of the table. Again, I'm not going to lose my shit if it's not. If we're not top of the table, as long as we see performances and as long as we get, 4 points, I'm happy. So obviously I said earlier on that I'm going to go back to the subs. I saw, obviously, in the lead up to getting Gilavogi, again, sorry if I mispronounce his name, Joshua, it's a beautiful name. I think I saw so many people saying, why does Farke not play the youngsters? We've got Charlie Crew, we don't need anybody else. Why, Farke doesn't like playing the youth, this, that, and the other. And I get everybody wants to see the youth. Everybody wants to hold on to that dream of having a youngster come up. But Archie wasn't involved last year because of the fact that he was a youngster. He was involved because of the fact that he's an incredibly talented player, hence the £40 million move to Spurs. Hence, Bielsa had him on the bench at 15 against Arsenal. There is a player there. It's got nothing to do with his name and nothing to do with the fact that he's an academy product. He is a brilliantly talented and very mature, level-headed player. So that worked with Daniel Farke. I'm not saying that Charlie Crew or Sam Chambers aren't those things, but I'm just saying we can't expect everybody to be the next Archie Gray. We can't expect that. Daniel Farke is employed by Leeds United and by the 49ers to get Leeds United promoted. That's his job. His job, first and foremost, is to get us to the Premier League. And he has to balance that with the expectation of certain players having X amount of minutes as well. They're not going to want to come off just for youth players. So it is Daniel Farke's job to get Leeds United promoted. It is not Daniel Farke's job to promote youth players and to help youth players get further along in their career. That is not his job. His job is to help Leeds, not to help individuals. There's a difference. And another thing, for as much as people say that it's Farke's fault for not bringing on the youth, I also think, well, if the starting 11 just got the job done, if they improved their conversion rate and they actually just put their chances away instead of needing 23 chances to score 3 goals, if they actually just did a slightly better job, that then allows Farke to think, right, well, my main people who I pay the big money to have got the job done. I can now give the youth stars a chance to make an impression and to make me question whether they do need a run in the first team. They're not being allowed to be given that chance because the main players aren't doing their job enough to get the job done early enough so that you can bring the players on. So I do think that you've got to balance it out in terms of Farke's job is to get us promoted. That's it. It's not to produce the next Archie Gray. It's not to, find the next wonder kid. It's nothing to do with that. It's to do with the fact that we need to get back to the Premier League, and that's that. So I hope that hasn't upset too many Farke haters. But if you do feel differently, then please discuss in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that usual business. And yeah, I think that's about it for today. So leave your comments if you agree, disagree with anything that I've said. Let's have a chat about it. Let's have a respectful chat about it. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye.